Typically we have two presenters, but today we have one as we're sharing the event. If you could please welcome Chris with ICEdot.
I appreciate that he didn't try to say my last name. My name is Chris Zenthoefer, and I'm going to talk a bit about ICEdot, but before I get going too much, I'm going to do a shameless plug, because another startup that I'm involved in, I'm the chair and co-founder of Tulsa, and this weekend is the Century Heartland cyclocross race, as well as the Disco Drum and Kane's Ballroom. Startup events that have brought a lot of people and money into the Tulsa economy, so get out and support those this weekend. There's a great write-up in Tulsa World today about it. So I'm going to tell a little different story about ICEdot. I've presented here before and talked about kind of our focus in the athletic niche and our sensors that mount onto helmets. So today is more of a follow-up on kind of where the company is going. And so ICEdot was actually originally created as a piece of health software that enabled consumers to own their own health data. So the idea was if you're in an emergency or whether you're not in an emergency, that you should control your health data and that you should be able to have that data auto-populate based off of devices and inputs, and that data should be able to go to work on your behalf whenever you need it most. And so that might be calling for help in an emergency, or that might be making suggestions to you based off of activity patterns. So ICEdot was initially introduced as a broad consumer offering. We actually did a big public program in the city of Philadelphia. It didn't work, and so we kind of pivoted and focused on a single niche, which is in the athletic space, and specifically within cycling, to kind of prove out our model. And a couple of things. ICEdot, people always think of us in that athletic space, and so I like to point out we're endorsed by the American Ambulance Association, the National Association of EMTs, and we have a new partnership with the Motorsport Safety Foundation, which manages the safety of all race car driving tracks. There's four key components to our platform. One is patient control. It's your data, you own it. And so anytime it's looked at, anytime it's touched, you have access to when your data is touched. And then data aggregation, kind of our goal is to bring people in mass. Provider interaction, obviously you want to be able to connect that data to providers so you make the data useful whenever you need it. And then device integration. Devices should be able to both access your data as well as post back into your data. So we've kind of just created a little ecosystem around health that you own. And we want to connect it to literally, we want you to be able to connect it to anything that you want to connect it to. Our current state is the athletic niche. We're distributed through, I think next year we should end up around 500,000 plus or minus bike and ski helmets that will have our emergency ID system built onto them. We're currently on Bell, we're on POC, we're on Shred, and we're on Rudy Project. So 4 different helmet brands, and we'll have another one. Actually, we'll be on Burton, which is their brand is Anon. We'll be on those starting in January. So we'll have quite a large distribution network for our emergency ID profiles. And then consumers have the ability to purchase our crash sensor, which is an upgrade from that. So the emergency ID profile is access to your data, who you are, who you want notified in case of emergency. And then the crash sensor accesses that data and detects if you've had massive head trauma. And in case we think you might be unconscious, you sound an alarm on your phone and send your GPS coordinates to your emergency contacts via text message. So it's kind of a call for help feature. That device has won Wired Magazine Awards, Smithsonian, Men's Journal, Outside Magazine, Best of the Best. So it's been a pretty exciting product to bring to market. But then we kind of look at where we can go, and like a lot of people think about, well, you made that crash sensor, and are you going to take it into football, or are you going to take it into these other areas? And really, our business isn't that we have to make everything. Our goal is that other things can connect to us. We have an open API. We have the ability to tie other people's devices into our system and access features of our system. So we're kind of looking at other markets. Obviously, our sensor could be taken into other action sport markets outside of cycling. That is an opportunity. We actually did a project with ICEdot, where they built us a prototype app and kind of did some market studies on the youth football market. So clearly, there's one, but it doesn't have to be just head impact data. It could also be performance data. There's a lot of companies producing biometric shirts and these sorts of things. And the interesting thing about all these companies are collecting activity data is none of them tie activity data to health information, right? It's all, you burn this many calories, you weigh this much, that sort of thing. But what about medications, allergies, conditions, these sorts of things? And what about passing that data over to a medical professional when it's needed? So that's kind of where we fit into that puzzle. Universities, personal emergency response systems. So you think about people on campus. I mean, it's 1 in 5 women report sexual assault on a university right now in America. And so you think about devices. We actually have a part of our system where you can check in and check out. And so you can tell people to follow you, and our system will track you. Well, if you build that into a wearable or a watch or something that's very discreet, you have the ability to tell your emergency contacts that I want to be followed and that I made it okay. So those are other markets that we are studying. And then obviously industrial safety is a pretty easy one. Fall detection, pressure changes, these sorts of things out in the field. These are all markets that our system can tie into, carrying both health information with sensory-based information. So this is where we're positioning ourselves. ICEdot's efforts in the health category are kind of a proof of concept, and so we're approaching partners to say, hey, leverage what we've done in this. If you make a safety product, do what we do with helmet companies and connect your safety device with health information. We want to let other people connect their wearable products to our platform so they don't have to build everything from scratch. Obviously, one of the big parts of building a wearable device is actually having a platform that it connects to. It also enables other people to more rapidly prototype their products if they tie into us versus building their own things. And then, obviously, we are working on trying to develop added value for our customers by introducing new products like this, personal emergency responses. So that is ICEdot.
All right. So now it's question time. And please get our attention so we can get a microphone to you. That way we get everything picked up on the camera. And I'd like to invite everybody that's standing in the back. There's plenty of seats up here. If you'd like to take this time to move up, that'll make this probably a little easier if everybody's kind of seated. You got a question right here? All right. Give it a second to get settled here. First question right here.
So just a little unsure, are you selling this to helmet manufacturers or to the broad community to latch onto their existing helmets?
So we sell to both, I would say. We have an emergency ID portion of our system, which is just who I am and who I want notified. That's actually done with a PIN number that goes on the helmet. And if someone sends a text message in with that number, and it'll text them back who I am and what I want them to know or do. So we're currently on about 12 different Bell helmet models. They're our biggest customer with that system. And then that system is kind of the beginning of ICEdot. It's access to the platform. And then from there, if someone says, all right, well, you guys have that crash sensor deal, I want to add that onto it, they buy that direct from us.
I have a question for you. So you're a refill. You presented at one of your cups before. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned since you were here last time?
I learned that manufacturing electronic devices is very, very tricky. And that batteries should not be overloaded. No, I think the last year we were presented with a number of challenges. So we did have a problem with batteries. It was a very costly problem, and really what it was a change from a specification from the battery supplier in China that we really had no access to. So the battery was doing great one day on this number of products, and then it wasn't working on this number of products. It was a very troublesome problem for us as a startup, but we kind of made it through that. And we also were faced with a patent troll lawsuit, which was a very frustrating experience. And so I've kind of, as a result, become a pretty big advocate of patent reform. I can tell you all about that.
All right. Another question?
Yeah.
It looked like, are you providing personal health information? And if you are, how is it secured?
Yeah, I mean, we do provide personal health information. So first of all, we put it all, it's patient-managed health information, so they actually put it in. So first of all, I always tell people, if they're super concerned, don't put in something you don't want someone to know. But normally we store data that you want someone to know if they're trying to save their life. But we don't store social security numbers or credit card numbers or anything like that. So you might find out that someone's diabetic. But it is It is a HIPAA compliant service for an EMS provider to use. So it's been vetted by the American Ambulance Association. We actually developed it in collaboration with MSAC.
Good morning, Chris. Where do you see this business being in 5, 6, 7 years from now?
Well, I think it's really important for us to connect into some of the larger players in this space. So the Bell Sports is obviously a big customer acquisition for us, and we now need to kind of move outside of just the bicycling space and kind of connect into this university market. We need to connect into industrial safety. And we're a small company, and we're still very much a bootstrapping I2E client. And so we need to connect into some people and show them how to develop products that tap into our system. But I think that in 5 to 7 years, if we're successful at doing that, our goal is that ICEdot kind of becomes a ubiquitous consumer-controlled health system that, like all kinds of devices, tap into. So if you can imagine the watches, every watch company wants to build a smartwatch right now, but they don't know anything about technology or electronics, and they make watches, which are maybe technology of a previous time, but the electronics business is very different. And so maybe we can help them. A lot of them are very much interested in that kind of PERS, personal emergency response system. So getting a major watch manufacturer to do something like that and integrate ICEdot into it would kind of establish ICEdot as a premium service on a global level.
Okay, I got a question here in the middle again.
So speaking of smartwatches, are you guys building an app for Android Wear or for Apple Watch so that they can be a modular add-on for other people who currently have that device?
We would certainly like to. It's in our plans.
Hey Chris, for those of us with kids, obviously safety is important. So how can I and should I think about ICEdot relative to tracking safety, riding bikes for my kids, et cetera? Do you see a real market there?
Yeah, thanks for the love ball, Mark. The ICEdot platform enables you to establish an emergency contact, a primary contact that receives automated check-in notifications. So like as a parent, if I want to enable my daughter to ride her bicycle to school, I can actually track her during that progress. So it'll actually tell me when she leaves, and it'll tell me when she's arrived, and obviously I can just watch the whole time. So not only are we monitoring for wrecks and head trauma type of situations, but we're also just making sure that she stays en route and gets where she's supposed to go. So right now that's really focused kind of within that athletic niche, but it certainly has applications for parents outside of there. And so we're, again, another market that we're kind of exploring how we leverage in another way.
Okay, I got a question right back here.
So does ICEdot only connect to the contacts you pre-set up? Like if I come across a dark road and there's a cyclist on the ground and he's got ICEdot, I've got no way to access any of that information. So how does that work?
Yeah, you do. There's a PIN number on the helmet. So there's an ICEdot mark, and it says, send a text with this, and it'll be a PIN number. And you send a text message with that PIN. So we have a short code in the US, 51020, but we also have a European number, Australian number, a South African number. So you send a text message with that PIN, and it'll text you back the instructions I've left for you. So that's how you get that.
Okay, question right here.
Hey Chris, apologize, I came in a little late, so I hope I'm not too redundant, but to fully understand the product, is this something, are there sensors in the helmet or in a wristband, or is it, if it's an app-based product, are you using an accelerometer in the phone to detect impacts and accidents?
Yeah, so we actually control a patent on helmet-mounted head impact detection. So it's an algorithm on a sensor that mounts the helmet. It's got an accelerometer and gyro, and an algorithm that's basically looking for what would equate to a tissue tear. That's what we're looking for. And so it's not for like goofy falls or broken collarbones or things like that.
Serious
get help. It's serious impact where we might think you're unconscious in a ditch.
Okay.
You can't call for help.
What are your plans for global sales strategies? I mean, how do you plan to monetize the system and get it out in front of the right people?
So, that system's actually been out for a couple of years, and we've won quite a number of awards. It's been on the Today Show actually, and so we are distributed in Europe. We're distributed in Australia, in South Africa. We're actually just picked up a distributor in Taiwan. So, but a lot of it is, to be honest, we do best online, and because generally within the action sports category, you find the retailers aren't necessarily super savvy on head trauma, and in particular, they're also, it's a new product, it's not invented a new shoe that they intuitively understand. It's like they got to explain it, they got to educate people. And so we find we're more effective at doing it online, going direct, and so we are selling globally right now. You could always do that.
Have you looked at distributing to neurologists and pediatricians?
We have. I'm not sure that. I mean, I think that we're so focused on kind of this bike and motorcycle space right now. I think that there's opportunities with that as we move into kind of broader sports activities, and so that's a possibility.
Okay, I have a question right here.
We've been through a thing in our house. This started, I don't know, like 15 years ago, where we got some little sticker that we put on the refrigerator, and I think it said ice on it, and we had a sandwich bag or a little plastic vial or something in the freezer compartment. Yeah, and so just what's your, I guess you're kind of a replacement or an upgrade to that, just on a personal level, yeah.
Yeah, modern day vial life, but you know, you can take it. You don't have to take your freezer with you. So, like for instance, we have bands. I have a band right here, and it has the pin number on the inside. So we distribute those to runners. We also, but the most common one is just the helmet sticker. I have a sticker on the back of my driver's license. So we sell sticker packs. They're real simple. They got a pin number. Put it on your driver's license. Put it on your health insurance card. Put it on, and we also have all the forms you can print off from your profile online. So if you want to stick something in your fridge, because medics do actually know about the BioLife program, you can print the form out, but also you can keep it up to date. So we send you an email every few months and remind you to update your information if anything's changed. You can print out the form, you can stick it wherever you need. I actually have forms of my whole family in the glove box in my car, and we also educate medics to look for the ICEdot sticker. We send everyone an ICEdot sticker to put on their car and educate medics that you might have something in the glove box. So yeah, it's kind of a modern BioLife. The BioLife program is good, it's better than nothing.
Great. I have a question here. Regarding distribution, I guess targeting like parents and things like that, are you guys currently just, I guess, selling online? Or, and I know you said you have also some stores, but are you guys doing anything to target currently, I guess, that demographic? Or like parents and like kids, something like that, who might be interested in your product?
You know, we've talked about going after the initial product and kind of what we have today is pretty action sports oriented. So there's a lot of application for kids, but maybe comes off a little too aggressive or whatever. And so our message isn't quite right for that. We've explored releasing like a kids version of the app and what that might take, because we have approached and presented to Target and some others, and they really feel like, you know, for us to be successful with them, we have to be a little more kid-friendly focused, and we'd be really focused on kids riding their bikes to school. So that's something that we have in our plans, you know, for the coming year, to try to release like a more same product, just, you know, kind of repackage it a little bit, and messaging and so forth.
Okay, question right back here.
Hi, Chris. On the business side of things, what are some areas that you found surprising growth, and then some other areas maybe where you thought you would grow faster or more, and they turned out not to be very ripe fields for growth?
Well, I'd say that you know, our primary distribution model, the growth of our database is through, you know, our partnerships with helmet companies, and it's a very seasonal partnership. So we have very busy times of the year where we get these helmet companies to commit to this thing, and then we really can't move the needle for quite a while because whatever they're going to produce, like, so right about now is when all the helmet companies are locking in or have locked in what they're doing for things that they'll release in August of 2016, right? So that's when all the big bicycle industry trade shows are, and the snow industry trade shows are in January. So they'll be, but basically, whatever they've committed to in August of 2016, then there's nothing, you know, for us to do for a while. So from that standpoint, we've been very successful in getting our stickers and our profiles system built onto helmet manufacturers, and that's risen, but then we kind of get in these kind of stuck periods where we want to move the needle, we'll get some interest, but you know, it's just their cycles are so long on helmet. So, and I think, you know, when we started out, we had no clue that helmet companies take so long. I mean, products that they'll introduce from 2 years from now are being locked down. So it's kind of nuts in that regard. I don't know that there's anything that's been like massively successful that surprised that surprised us. We thought probably that we would do better with the sensors than we have. And that's primarily due to the manufacturing problem that I mentioned earlier. So it's more of a hard knock business lesson.
Hey, Chris, you mentioned that you did a rollout in Pittsburgh, or was it Philadelphia? Philadelphia. Can you talk a little bit about, go into details of how that was a failure and what you learned from it?
Yeah, so we didn't have the bike focus and we didn't have the sensor, but what we did is we had a partnership with the city. So the mayor, the police chief, and the fire chief actually did a full endorsement of ICEdot. They actually included information on ICEdot in the city water bills for several months. We did PSAs, we did press conferences. I spent a lot of time in Philadelphia. And it was in January, I said, Philadelphia has this crazy event called Mother's Day Parade. And it's nuts. It's like Mardi Gras meets, Snoopy Parade. It's weird. But at any rate, we did a bunch of activity there. And the idea was, the city was saying, hey, we're trying to improve our emergency response system, and our citizens should get on the ICEdot. And so it was a very cool program. But at the end of the day, what we found with ICEdot, without having sensors and other things like that, is most consumers look at it as insurance, and there's just not a compelling, everyone oh, that's a brilliant idea, I need to do that, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. And it was always tomorrow. So no matter how much, you'd go around and oh, ICEdot, and I'm like, do you have it? And they'd be like, no. So I think the lesson for us was that's when we kind of decided that we needed to focus on the athletic space, because athletes kind of know that the healthiest people get into these crazy situations. So the athletic niche focus came out of that, as well as having a device that showcased what the system was capable of, because we needed to be able to show more value than just sharing your emergency health information. So those are kind of the two big lessons.
Okay, I got a question right back here, and this may be our last question.
What are some of the functionalities for the open API that you mentioned? What kinds of things are you making available to that?
Sharing of emergency health information, we can pass data over. Obviously, the consumer owns it, so they allow data to be accessed. So if they want to connect health information over to another system, we can do that. But we also have the ability to trigger notifications, whether it's tracking notifications and provide the tracking system behind it, or also notifications about emergencies, like kind of a call help type feature. So one area that we're targeting with that is people who are doing these kind of smart watches. If they want to have a button on there that's a call for help button, they should tap into our system. They don't have to reinvent the wheel.
One more question right back here.
Chris, you mentioned earlier that you've run into some patent issues earlier, but can you talk a little bit about what competition you have in the marketplace and how it affects you and your customers?
Sure. So the competition's, if we're talking specifically about the athletic niche, the competition would probably be a company called Road ID. A lot of people are familiar with them. They make a static wristband, but people are pretty used to it. It's just your name engraved on the plate, and a lot of athletes use it. And a lot of people will compare us to them, although our system is a lot bigger and a lot more complex. But they do a good job. They do a good job of marketing, but they don't make wearable devices, and they certainly don't make a head trauma sensor. In the head trauma sensor space, we really don't have any major competitors. Most of the people with activity in that space are focused on team sports, particularly football. A lot of people ask about football, but the NFL Players Association actually voted against using head trauma sensors because if you tell a football player they can't play, then they don't get paid. So the Players Association is not necessarily, they like to talk about concussions, but they don't necessarily want to wear the devices that provide the data. So we're a little, slower moving on that space. We do control a patent. We have our own patent on the head trauma sensors, and so we have a little bit of protection around that. Most of our competitors, there's one that makes a patch that mounts behind the ear. There's another one that was a skull cap, but we're the one that actually attaches to our helmet. So I think the patent has given us some protection from competition within that space. As we move outside of that and we just start talking about health data and connecting things to health data, there's a lot of people in that space, but it's all very, very kind of new. We've been in that space actually for a very long time. But Microsoft has the Health Vault, Apple has the Health app on your phone. All of those things don't necessarily do the same thing, but they could if they were treated this way and that way. So really, I think for us, the biggest thing we can do, and the best thing we should be doing, is connecting getting other brands' engagement into our system. So it's not just the ICEdot system. You get Bell is committed to the ICEdot system. So who else can we get from outside to also validate the ICEdot system?
All right, well, those of you that aren't familiar with 1 Million Cups, we end each of these question and answer times with the same question. And that question, Chris, is what can this community, and you got some extra community here today thanks to the extra event, but what can this community do for ICEdot?
Yeah, well, if you're building any devices or know people who are building devices, obviously we'd love to connect to them. But the biggest thing is be an ICEdot customer.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that wonderful presentation.